Welcome everybody to the Curriculum and Instruction Committee meeting. The meeting is being recorded. We have not decided how we're going to present these, but we are recording all our committee meetings and board meetings, and at some point we'll figure out how to get them up onto the web for future listening. As with the other meetings, because there's a couple new faces, we don't stand on prompt and circumstance. You don't need to get up and state your name or come up to the podium to talk. We do stay on the agenda and agenda items only. We don't try to spur off of those items, and because we all have jobs during the day, I have a hard stop at 9 o'clock, so that the teachers and others can get home. I have an appointment with a tree tomorrow morning at 5 o'clock. So, okay. We are going to cover, in case you didn't know, you did not pick up the agenda. We're going to talk about the course selection guide for the high school, which will be the second item. We're going to talk about class weighting and class rankings, mainly how it affects the AP and the honors classes. They have not been looked at. And again, as we promised, and Mr. Schott knows that because I keep my promises, we are going to look at all ways of our grading. We looked at the grading last week and determined that it was... 65 as being failing was statistically significant where it was, and we didn't feel we needed to change that, bringing that grade up higher to make an F a higher level to 70 or 75. So we left it where it was. We'll continue to look at that after, say, 2 quarters where we have some more data again as an ongoing practice, but unless something really sticks out and there is not a normal distribution, it doesn't make a lot of sense to upset that apple cart right now. It also has a lot to do with the fact that although it doesn't matter what the neighboring districts are doing, if we're trying to compare our students with students in other districts in the county and the state, we'd like to be able to compare apples to apples, as do the colleges and other things. So we're going to talk about we're going to talk with Mrs. Trainer as far as the K through 12 professional staffing, some recommendations that she wants and Mr. McElmoy will have that we may bring back to the full board as a recommendation. And finally, I had added today the No Child Left Behind update. There was some interesting information coming out of Washington today in the last 4 or 5 days, articles that the district may want to take advantage of doing some things. So we'll address that. Okay? Okay, first we'll start. Any questions before I move on? Okay. Mrs. Trainer, you have you looked at the class, the grade weightings we'd asked you to, and how they hit with GPAs and the others. Understanding that colleges don't look at course weightings. The colleges don't care they care if you take an AP course, but they're not multiplying that AP grade by any type of a factor, if I'm not mistaken. So if you take an AP course, it counts. It's equally weighted as your standard English class or your standard chemistry class. Classes are the same. So, but the districts in the county, as well as I guess the state, weigh AP courses and honor courses differently. And we had asked you to take a look at that and report back and let us know what you found out.
And I sent you a spreadsheet that gave you all of the school districts in Berks County. I used a couple of different larger schools with some demographics that were similar to ours or were academically strong. I gave you Hershey, Bethel Park, out in the Pittsburgh area, ONJ for a neighboring school. And when I did a search to find weighted grades with Virginia, I found that the state itself just set a standard for the entire state in Virginia. So you can see that it ranges anywhere from no weight in certain school districts to 1.2 for an honors course. Some are contingent on the grade you receive in the course.
Or the course you're taking.
Right, or the course you were taking. And in the AP courses, it goes anywhere from 1.05 to the course you're taking, to the grade you get, to 1.4. not sure how you got the 1.17.
Right. Yeah, no. Just for the public, when you look at school districts at Conrad Weiser, do 1.1 for honors, 1.2 for AP courses. Kutztown, 1.2 for honors, 1.4 for AP courses. I think that's a little steep, but they've done that. Muhlenberg, 1.17 honors to 1.33 for your AP courses. Antietam, Exeter, Fleetwood, Hamburg, Schuylkill Valley are the same as we are. Wilson has 1.1 and 1.7, and Wyomissing is 1.2 and 1.25. So, again, sorry to interrupt. Go ahead. It's just a little flavor where they are. It appears that the larger, probably a little more. I don't want to insult the school districts. As long as the press is and everything, I'm okay. A little more academically advanced. The ones that tend to they're giving a little more credit toward the AP. If anybody has taken an AP course or have children taking AP courses, there's a considerable more work involved in an AP course than in an honors course. An honors course, you may have to read a book. Not that it's any slough, because some of the books my daughter's had to read have been, I wouldn't read, but the AP course, sometimes they're doing an entire chapter during the summer, entire unit prior to coming in. So we were talking about possibly giving it a little bit more of a bump. So back to you, Emery, sorry.
No, that's all right.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem rethinking. I would suggest you wouldn't go any higher than 1.1 and 1.2 for any of the weight that you would recommend as a committee to go forward with that. The thing that you do need to keep in mind is we're not talking this school year, because seniors could already be in the midst of applying for colleges. Things are reflected in the documentation that gets sent. So just like when we do strategic planning and we say beginning with the class.
Would it start with the freshman class?
No, you could do courses starting in the 12-13 school year.
Got it. I see.
You could even do seniors in the class of 2013. You could even go back and wait the 11th grade.
I would probably think that would be, there are a limited number of juniors that are taking some AP courses right now.
You just don't want to do
changing it next year. They didn't get the benefit of that change on their this year, of course, they took this year. So I mean, I would think that if you're going to do a change, you do it the change of the senior class 2013. I mean, the junior class this year, we haven't pushed the grades yet, so it's not. It could be done, and then moving forward, so it'd be the junior class of this year moving forward.
So the impact really won't affect college applications. It really just affects who finishes class
GPA.
1 in their class and 2 and 3 and 4, 5, and so forth.
In a sense, I would say that that's the indirect effect, because colleges do look where you rank.
Oh yes, yes.
So, and this scoring has the potential to change someone's standing, and that, in effect, I mean, if we're talking, and you never know. I mean, if you're talking Harvard admission versus Kutztown University, and I went to Kutztown, but Harvard's obviously hard. When they look at those top 3 or 4 students in a class, that makes a difference to them.
It could change
Absolutely.
someone's class rank if you change it partway through their career, and they may have taken different classes if they'd known.
Absolutely.
But see, the point is, by doing it with the class of 2013, very few, if any, juniors had the opportunity to take an AP course this year.
But they've had opportunities to take honors classes.
Well, we're not changing the honors weighting, just the AP rating.
Honors right now at Boone is 1.05.
Right. Okay.
Part of the criteria and the prerequisites to get into AP is they have to be in a certain course in order to take the AP, which means, and I hate to talk about a track, but they have to be in a certain track starting in 9th grade in order, technically you cannot jump from an academic class to AP.
Right.
You have to go
You had to be in an honors track or an accelerated track.
Accelerated
Right.
or honors. So
Right.
the kids that are in the academic track won't have that opportunity. If it was presented to an incoming 9th grade class, they have more of an opportunity and things will be fair. And the indirect effect of students that class rank is very important. When you weight something, like where my home school where my daughter goes, AP courses are weighted about 25%. Some of the students then in the senior year have GPAs of close to 5.0. And a student that didn't take any honors or AP courses has a class rank, even if they have a 3.5, they're about in the middle 50 percentile as far as the class rank. And that does affect them when colleges are looking at their class rank. Because they don't always necessarily know that, well, this school has AP courses weighted at 0.25 or 0.30. You really end up with inflated GPAs, and it does affect the regular academic kids as far as their class rank negatively.
Right. And I've heard discussions of kids where some took a strategy of not taking any AP classes or anything, so they figured they would get an easier class, do less work, and certainly get an A, and figured that would get them in a higher class rank.
But by weighting
Right.
the AP courses and the honors course, at least the honors course a little higher than the AP course, would that not push them to take an honors course?
I think it would.
And I think that's the point that I support and like the simple fact that you get a kid that'll skate by and graduate with a 98 average and never take an honors course.
Right, and there have been some that have done that.
And you're right. So they have a 98 average. They've never taken an honors course. Where if you give the honors a 10%, and you give the AP a 20%, now you're going to challenge them to know that if they still want to get to where they want to go, you're going to push them a little more.
Right. So I don't have a problem giving a greater weight to these. What I would have a problem is changing it midstream, because it seems to me some kids have taken a path that they're on because that's how they perceive getting their best grade situation. So it seems to me if you're going to change it, it should be at a freshman level or a sophomore level. It shouldn't be at a senior class level because...
No. That's why I recommend the
Right.
junior class.
Yeah, I think maybe we should go...
Well, and I think Alan has a good point as far as before they make any decisions. Historically, when we have changed something,
Right.
we have changed it with an incoming 9th grade.
Okay.
That's everywhere I've ever seen, and I've been, as having had experience as a high school principal, any other district I've ever been in, this seems to always come up as a point of discussion in committees like this where people want to try to keep the academic standards high. I think there's a need for a phase-in period because students predicate their 4 years on certain information. And to change that information midstream, I think will cause some conflict with some people.
It could actually adversely impact some students, and that's not a good thing.
If we are mandated to put an additional requirement in, let's say from the Department of Ed when they put in the career course, or if we change the number of math courses you need to graduate. We have also historically always done it with the incoming 9th grade.
Right.
So that would make it consistent
Right.
if you
I
did it
think
that
that
way.
would make sense. I have no problem giving greater. In fact, I would encourage students to take more classes. The other question I have really for Bill is, if we do this and now more students decide to take these classes, do we have the capacity to offer them?
Well, they'd have to meet the
Do we have-
criteria to take those courses.
Right. That's the second part.
We do have capacity in the current sections for a number of more kids. There can be 2 sections of something if that were necessary. That does impact staffing, though.
Yes.
You know, if you look at it this way, if there's, let's say, 40 kids taking an honors course in their junior year, and let's take English, 10 of them take on the challenge of AP English Lit in their senior year. So we have a class with 10 kids in it, AP English Lit. Now we have 30 kids left over out of that 40. And really, that's too large of a section to make it one section. So you end up with two sections of honors with, 15 each. So that's how it can affect staffing. Now, if we attract more kids, there can be more kids in honors sections than the AP section. That's the way it is right now. There's plenty of seats in the two honors sections and the AP English Lit. But in other subject areas that may not be true. But it can affect staffing, where you have more sections of something with fewer students in it.
Explain, how would that affect, I'm looking, again, I'm rolling two of them into one now. I'm looking at your course selection guide where you're talking about an AP class is 1.10. If it's got a lab, it's 1.287. Is that the lab by itself, or is it the course and the lab because they are combined as single grade?
Because there's more sections a week. It meets more days. It's more periods a
It
week.
meets 7 periods a cycle, so it's 1.17 credits for a lab science,
Okay.
and then the weightedness.
Okay. So an AP chemistry class, AP physics class, anything that's got a lab, they're already getting a boost on top of it. So those would all be boosted up a little bit then also at that point.
Sure.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But the first boost is for time.
Right.
For
Right.
seat
Understand.
time.
I have that.
Okay.
I got that part. Okay. Well, again, I got no problem. I mean, resetting it at the beginning of the incoming 9th grade class, which would be 13, 14, 15, 2016 class. God, 2016. I have no problem bringing that as a recommendation if the committee is at the level at 1 and at 10% and 20%.
That would be increasing the honors from 5 to 10 and AP from 10 to 20.
And
1.05 for honors is what it is now to 1.10. AP would be 1.10 to 1.20.
Ms. Dudowski, you support that?
I support increasing it. I was trying to reopen this, to kind of see what that does to us. I mean, does that,
Are you looking at this?
yeah, I'm just trying to.
That puts
And does
us
that really throw us,
that puts us in with
no, not that, I'm sorry, I was looking at the survey.
that puts us up in
Oh.
the same areas as the Brandywines, the Conrad Weiser, the Kutztown, Governor Muhlenberg.
I think at the end of the day, what it does
See, I
is
don't really have an issue with the 1.10. I was just wondering if the 1.2 is too high. What? I mean, I guess that's comparable. So.
Well, let me ask the question, since we have McMorro here. Because it's an AP class, it's tougher, there's more work to be done. I'm thinking a few of those students are going to get Bs that would normally get As in a
They'll get
regular
Cs
class.
even.
Yeah.
Right. So, so
Giving them 1.2.
that really does help those students. I mean, they're actually taking on a great deal more work. But if they took the academic class, no question, those students would be getting A's probably.
Yes.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
yes.
And, yeah, they're doing a lot more work.
Yes, they are.
Right. So,
There's a lot more work required even before they start to attend the class
I know.
in the end of August.
AP classes are what I like to refer to as like year-round classes. They're pretty much, you need to keep up with those almost 12 months a year to stay up with it.
And again, you both support instead of 2013 to 2016 incoming 9th grade class next year.
I don't have strong preference either way, but if that's the way that the committee's leaning.
I think that'd be fair to the students, to tell you the truth.
It becomes very difficult to start playing the math game
It does.
when you mix the numbers up.
Right.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, for the top 5 kids in the class, it will make a huge difference as to who becomes valedictorian or who doesn't. And that would be a shame to, in my opinion, to tinker with that.
Again, I gotta.
Yeah.
I have a problem with people that with students that take a course, that takes academic courses, period,
It's a coast.
to coast to get an end objective.
And that's
you
where
know,
I mean,
so
I don't
if by
necessarily-
changing the 2013 class to these numbers and somebody who's a valedictorian gets bumped out of the top 3 or 4 because of it, then maybe they shouldn't have been valedictorian to begin with.
But people have absolutely done that.
I'm not disagreeing with it. I'm not disagreeing with it.
I
I do
believe that.
go a little
Yeah.
bit with
Yeah.
Walt's theory of if you choose to coast, I don't necessarily feel
And I have
necessarily
to
if
be
somebody
real
who
careful, to be
works
honest with
harder
you, because my
gets
daughter sits in
bumped.
this situation, so I have to be real careful on which way I weigh. That's why I got to defer to the 2016 just because of that.
I think that would be a wise decision because, you know, you shouldn't. People are on a path to take certain classes. Now, if you change the grading system midstream,
Yeah. Again, I don't want to be brought back saying that I brought this forward because of, and so we'll just keep it the way it is and go to 2016. And I have no kids in school at that point, so nobody can say anything.
Were the averages calculated for the county as to what honors and AP are? You mentioned certain numbers, but did you figure out an average?
No, we didn't. The reason we didn't do the average is you'd have to also know how many to make it statistically sound. You had to know how many courses they would. I think you'd have to know how many courses they'd also have to offer. I mean, if Antietam offered one honors course and they gave it a 1.05 versus Boone that offers, say, 30 honors courses and a 1.05, you're not comparing apples to apples. So we didn't do that. And some of the schools gave no weighting, and some of the schools said it depends upon the course you're taking. Yeah, I mean, if you took, English honors, you got 1. If you took math honors, you got whatever they determined to be more difficult.
There's no way to
Divided on
there's
grade.
no way to escape when you use a system like this unless you don't weight anything. The gaming, I hate to say that word, but there's a game that goes on with this whole thing that you were referring to, and you have to be very, the really astute students, they start charting that course and they know if they get this, that, or the other thing in this class, they'll tell you what their GPA is before you tell them.
Well, that's why, although there are some detractions against doing it in 2013, there are some benefits by making those students that were skating now have to step up next year. But, if we were going to do this, we should have done it before
Last year.
this school year started to make it fair.
It's impossible for them to do that.
Right.
At this point.
Right. We should have done it before this school year started. Therefore, they could have changed into an AP or an honors course this year and at least had 2 years of it. So we'll go with the class of 2013 and 16, I'm sorry, and go from there. Okay? Any other questions? Okay. Moving on. Course selection guide. Floor is yours.
Did you get a chance to preview it?
I did preview it.
Since you got
I did preview it. I would surmise that seeing that the edits were on, the things that were in red were going to be the changes.
Correct. And there's lines through everything that's going to be deleted. Now, things that were deleted last year, they're not in here, but like, for example, Mr. Yakel's courses, they weren't offered this year, so they're not, you don't see them in here at all. But I think one of the big changes is, if you look on page 4, course criteria, we offered waivers for students to get into courses they didn't qualify for if their parents signed a waiver, only for academic courses, not for honors and not for AP. Because we didn't offer waivers for those courses because they generally would hold back the group because they really weren't catching on and didn't really belong in there. Now, in academic, we did offer waivers because we wanted to give them the opportunity to take college prep courses, even if they didn't meet the criteria. However, that's caused more problems than it's solved in that many of them really are misplaced and they're failing. Then it will become, unfortunately, the parent will blame the teacher, and it's really just creating a lot of problems. So if they don't meet the course criteria for an academic course, they would be in the applied courses starting in ninth grade. That doesn't mean they're relegated to applied courses forever. If they meet the criteria and get a good grade in ninth grade applied Algebra 1 class, they can qualify for the academic track the following year. So that's a big change, and I wanted to point that out. That's one. The rest really are minor changes, informational items on college planning, that you can see in red as you scroll through there. And then in the back, individual departments and individual teachers made changes to their course descriptions. And the prerequisites are also, there may have been a change to a prerequisite for a particular course. But the big thing there is the course waivers in this whole.
So, an example here, to get into geometry, you needed a 74% or better in Algebra 1, or a 95% or better in applied algebra.
Correct.
A little on the stiff side, isn't it? And the answer is yes. I mean, 95 is a hell of a grade. I mean,
it's based on.
You just said you weren't relegating them to the applied.
It's based on the math teacher's years of experience of students that have come up from applied with a lesser grade, and they don't do well in the academic track.
But you're more or less relegating. How many people that took applied math last year got a 95 or better in Algebra 1?
Off the top of my head, I don't know that.
I know of at least two because they're sitting in my Algebra 1.
Okay, so you relegated everybody but two to take the applied course the following year.
Well, they have a track record from the middle school that indicates also that they don't belong in the academic track.
I probably had 5 that had the high A's, 5 to 10. And that range more so than 2. 2 might have chosen to take the academic. But some people go back to go to algebra.
That's it. I think we have to be careful too that, I mean, it's no different than when I was in school, but we kind of do this college prep and academic. I mean, just because somebody's in applied or is it conceptual next
They
year?
want to change the title. Yeah.
You know, that doesn't mean they can't go to college.
Correct.
And I ran into this with our own guidance. It was like, well, that and we have to be very careful not to tell these kids that they can't go to college because they're in applied. They can. And sometimes I think it's better to get an A in applied than get a D in academic. And so I think we need to be very careful with the kids.
And I would agree with you on that. Even some of the state schools are accepting students that had applied courses. Depends what their major was. Obviously, if they were going to a state school where math was really important, engineering, they had to have the higher level math courses. But they are starting to accept students that are in applied courses.
And community college is still college, and they can take, they take high school dropouts, eventually. So I just think that we really kind of have to. We should, watch how we.
I also want to be very careful that we don't raise the bar
too high.
And maybe, and I'm going to have to sit on this and think about that, and the board's going to have to look at it. Maybe a 95 is where it should be. It's a recommendation. Maybe a 93. I don't know where that level should be. Certainly not an 85, that range. But maybe a 95 just seems stern.
If that's what the teachers think is the right, based on the ability of the students, I don't know how we should override that.
I know, but as you have said, and as many others, we're here also for the students, and you got to think about the students that are out there and whether or not they're going to be able to get locked into that applied path, or if they're going to be able to jump over into the academic path. Either one of them.
If a kid has a 94, does that?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. No.
Yeah, but then you get down to you have a 92 instead of a 93. But I'm just trying to make that bar. Just trying to make that bar an achievable bar, and a 95 may not be an achievable bar to move you out of one into another path. A 93 may be a little more achievable. I don't know. Maybe I could ask the two math teachers here, if you could just think about it a little bit.
If I can
Yeah.
interject a little bit, when we met as a department to discuss these criteria and talk about prerequisites for class, those of us who not only teach the applied students, but also teach the academic classes those kids move into when they get out of the applied or make them move into academic, we're the ones who set that grade. I said that there were two who scored 95 or better in applied algebra 1 last year because I have them now in applied or in academic algebra 1, and they're doing exceedingly well for me. They have at minimum, I want to say a mid-B. The other 10 or so that I have in academic algebra 1 who last year were in applied algebra 1 who did not make that A cutoff are struggling to pull a high D. Primarily not because of curricular changes, not because of gaps in their learning necessarily, but because of work ethic, because of motivation, because if it's work, we just kind of close down. We're used to being in a class where you didn't have to do quite so much so fast on your own, and that makes a huge difference.
Well, again, I'm going back and looking at academic English. It's only an 83 in an applied course. Now, granted, English and math are different courses. I'm just, again, from my standpoint, just ask you to rethink that level. I don't disagree it needs to be in the A range, but does it need to be as far as a 95, 93? I mean, again, you're going to get that 92. You're going to get that same question from the board.
Right.
Okay, when they see that. So
now, can I take that one step further? I mean, those 10 students that are struggling because of work ethic, do you think that they should not be an academic? I mean, do you think that they should be in an applied class?
They scored less than an A in applied last year. Our prereq was lower. It has been lower in the past to move to academic. Whether they should be an applied class intellectually, I'd have to look at each one. As far as their opportunity for success, based on all the factors that go into that, intellectual, social, motivational, whatever. Again, as you stated, in some cases it's better to do well in an applied class than to flunk or almost fail an academic course. And if we're talking about kids who struggle with confidence in their mathematical abilities, which pertains to a lot of these kids, putting them in a situation where they have to continually beat their heads against the wall just to get by is not always the most efficient way to build their confidence in their math abilities.
Okay. I know that when that comes up at the full board level, it's going to be, and Mrs. Facette combed these things, so I know it's going to be grabbed very quickly. So if you could revisit that and look at that.
Yeah.
Tom?
If a student, let's say, got 90 and applied, and under this new wasn't allowed to, would they have the opportunity to go to some summer school somewhere, either in this district or a neighboring district, to get that up to a 95 so that they would qualify?
Summer school doesn't give a grade, I don't think, does it?
No,
It's a
we
pass or fail.
don't. We haven't done that. When we did have the waivers, though, there were parents with a list of things that they were going to do to make sure that their child succeeded in a higher level. Like, we will hire a tutor, and my child will be tutored. Generally, what they write down there doesn't happen.
I think you want to get as many kids as you can in some of these classes.
There's a few that follow through, but most do not. So once they get their child in there, they're left to, succeed or fail on their own. And many of them, back to work ethic, they don't even come in after school for tutoring, even with the D.
Right.
They do not do it. Math teachers will attest to that. They don't have that work ethic that the other students have.
I guess my only fear is that that can change over a 4-year
It can.
career too, and it's almost like Walt said, we're saying, well, you know what, you didn't have the work ethic, and you weren't putting your best forward, so we're going to keep you down instead of trying to challenge you to come up. And I don't know where that line is. I wouldn't want to be the teacher. I mean, I believe me, there's no way I would want to be in a room with 25 teenagers trying to figure that out. But I just don't want to keep them down either when they could potentially, if it's a work ethic issue, that could change.
Then all of a sudden the spark hits,
Right.
but it's too late. You already.
If it's an intellectual issue and they don't have those skills, it's a problem. If it's just, I don't feel like doing my homework, sometime that changes. I mean, I've seen it change with my own child. You got to get to a point where they decide they want to work.
Right, and it's different for every child.
Right.
But one of the problems that comes with that when we have the waivers and, okay, now they're misplaced, we did have a consequence in there, which it's all crossed out, but you can read it. It's on page 4, where they would get, if they needed to drop down to apply after signing a waiver and getting into academic, and they come through a progress report time of the first quarter and they have an F, and it's clear they really aren't going to get it, and they still don't decide to drop down, they wait till the end of the first quarter or even the end of the second quarter, now they have 2 Fs, it's pretty clear they're not going to pass the course, they need 4 math credits to graduate, so they want to drop down now. So now we have a number of kids, let's say the 10 kids that were in academic algebra 1 in 10th grade, they all want to drop down to applied. They would get a 0 in that applied course in the 3rd and 4th quarters. It would be computed into their GPA, and they could drop down. And that's a very heavy consequence, which the parents and the child really don't pay attention to until the time comes. So it's not a pleasant conversation. But we would still hold them to that. But then when they would drop down, the applied sections are already established. It says, pick your courses carefully. Sectioning, teacher assignments are all based on this. So now we have, let's say, 4 sections of applied, and there's 25 kids per section. Now we have 10 or 15 kids that want to drop down. The sections become overloaded, and they've missed the applied material, which is a little different than the academic. So it's really... the whole process becomes very complicated. That's why it's really important to be in the right track right from the beginning. Not that we want to hold you down, but
No, I agree,
really
and I don't
complicates
necessarily
things.
think that they should be allowed to drop down to, I mean, I think if you sign a waiver and you're committing to it, your choice may be summer school. I mean, I'm not saying everybody should have to rearrange everything.
But summer school is very expensive for some parents.
Yes, it is.
It's $280 for one class, and many of the students need 2, 3, or 4. So they can take 2 at Daniel Boone, and they'll say, well, I can't afford that. So we came up with that. I'm getting a little off track, but we came up with, well, you can do a Keystone Credit Recovery course, which is $119 versus $200. Am I low on that? $280? So they will opt for that, but they get through it. Unless it's a math course, they don't get through it. They end up failing it, and then they still have to take it later. Come back as a 5th-year senior maybe, because they don't have the money. So the summer school is a good idea, except a lot of people don't have the money for their child to attend summer school.
Well, I just got. We got to bring this to the full board to have this adopted, and I see two things are going to be hard for the full board to adopt. One of them is going to be the 95 or better in the math. That's what I'm asking, just to relook at it. If you come back and say that's what we dig your heels in and say that's what we're going to do, then that's what you want. And the other is if you do that and you take the waiver away, it's going to be very hard. It's going to be a very hard sell.
I have 2 questions. First, will this committee be making a recommendation to the full board to approve this at the next meeting?
No, we're bringing this to the full board for review. We won't approve. We won't bring a recommendation either way on this.
Okay.
As it sits now, I wouldn't recommend it.
All right.
They have to review it.
And I have another comment I'd like to make. In regards to the waivers for the applied classes to go up to the academic level, Mr. McElroy said something to the effect of that if we apply that to honors and AP classes, the children who got these waivers would be holding back the group. I would have to disagree with that. I'm not saying we should offer waivers. However, I think the criteria to be accepted into an AP or honors class, I think is a bit high personally. I mean, and it's just got more difficult last year. Right now, to make it into an AP class, you have to have a 92% in honors the previous year. You have to have a teacher recommendation, and you have to score advanced on the PSSAs. Scoring advanced on the PSSAs was just implemented last year, if I'm correct. I'm not sure if, I don't know if the district even gets their score.
Connor, I don't believe it was a 92. You had to have a 92 in the academic course and an 87 in the honors course.
Yes, that's correct. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yes. I don't know if the kid wants to take an honors level class and he does not get that grade, or he does not score so well in the PSSA, if he gets 1 point below, I don't know. If the teacher recommends that kid and says he would be able to take this level class, and the teacher teaching the class believes that child is capable based on whatever criteria that teacher thinks is acceptable, I don't see why that kid should not be allowed to take an honors or an AP class.
Well, we've discussed this before, and I think we're going to continue to discuss this because the goal is to try to get in my personal opinion, the goal is to try to get as many kids who qualify into an honors course if they qualify. Having three separate hurdles, I guess it is. You got the 87, the proficiency, and the recommendation. Sometimes they got to write an essay. Sometimes they have to take a separate test. I mean, to have passed 4 criteria or 5 criteria may be a little difficult, and I don't know if it's for this board or this committee to make a recommendation. We look at this whole thing, and we need to look at it a little deeper. I've gone to Mr. McElroy on this on a couple of occasions. I don't know if scoring, scoring proficient on a foresight test
is not difficult.
It's not difficult. It should be a prerequisite to take an honors course. I don't disagree with that. And to get an 87 or a higher in your previous honors course to get into the next honors course.
I know today to do an honors class, in an academic class, you must have a 92 to make it up to honors.
Correct.
Now, I think it might be better to, instead of having to get the trifecta, I call it, all 3 of them, maybe get 2 out of the 3. I think you should leave it more up to the teachers. If the teacher thinks that kid is capable of taking these higher level classes, why shouldn't that kid be able to? I think that it is difficult. If you want to be in an honors class, it seems almost as if they are not allowing you to almost. I think we should be encouraging kids to take these classes.
I agree. I think the trifecta is difficult, and that's why I think the waiver situation you had helped you do that screening process. And I think we need to look at it a little closer. Again, I know it may cause some riffles here and there, but if you're going to insist on the trifecta, then you've got to have some type of a waiver process. If you're going to say 2 out of the 3, then you can take the waiver process away. 2 out of 3, one of which maybe needs to be the grade, or And again, that's just a personal recommendation, personal thought.
I'd just like to say one more thing about this subject. If the kid, let's just say, if the kid wants to take the honors class, maybe the kid is an academic, he gets a B. If that kid really wants to take the honors class, why not let him? I do not believe it will hold the class back. Being in AP classes, you make the AP class what you want to. You put in the effort that you expect, and you get the return back based on what you put in. I do not believe that a child who does not participate in the class, if the child does not participate in the class, then he will not get a significant return. So on that child, I don't believe it'll hold the class back. It's not a sports team. If the kid isn't pulling his own weight, it doesn't hurt the entire class. You're taught. You're not necessarily participating. I know in AP history, if you want to answer questions, you can. If you don't want to, you can just sit there. If the kid.
But are we doing that? Are we doing that student a dishonor by letting him take an AP course? He doesn't ask questions, and the class moves. And now, again, just to hear you out, he gets a C. Where if he had taken either an honors class or just an academic class and gotten a B or an A, just because he could say he took an AP course and he fought the establishment to get into it, to do that. I don't think that we're doing the student justice.
You're concentrating on grades, though.
Yeah.
It's not always about the grade.
Yeah,
I'd just like to respond to what you said, and that is, the teachers set these criteria. The teacher that's teaching the class sets the criteria based on years of experience. It's not set by administration, it's set by the teachers to set the student up for success in that class.
Am I not correct,
So,
though, that it's 87% across the board for all AP, for all going
No,
into?
it's a little different in some departments. They've
Oh.
changed their criteria and lowered it, the grade, to get into honors, for example, in some other departments. So it used to be universal across all departments, but it started to change a little bit about 5 years ago. Departments have some different grade percentages to get into different courses. The most difficult, obviously, is math and science. And you can ask the math teachers that are here. Students that are not really belonging in a math class can hold back the group because they ask a lot of questions, they don't understand it. The kids that get it right away get frustrated because the other kids are holding back the class. The AP teacher has a certain amount of material
It's only
to cover,
3
and they have to move,
make
they have
honors.
to move fast,
87.
and they can't be held back by students that don't belong there.
Yeah.
I think math and
That may not
science,
be
you can
true
hold
in
the class
history.
back.
And
English
Connor,
and history-
in math, it's an 83 in your honors class to make the next honors
I
class.
will admit that I have
Yeah.
more experience with the AP history, the AP English,
Right.
than with the AP math.
Right.
But I just wanted to say one more thing. I wanted to respond to you. If the kid in the AP history class, I'll use that as an example, if he gets a C, then he learns for the next year, all right, I won't take an AP class, I will take an easier class. The kid will determine for himself.
But there's an element of parents that come into this too, and I think that's part of the problem. There's some parents who think their child is a genius, and it's just the teacher, the reason they got such a bad grade the year before, you know what I mean? And I think that sometimes parents try to push kids to take classes that really, they're putting them in the wrong place. And I think,
Well, that is the parents' right. I mean,
but the reality is, teachers are the professionals that see this every day, and I think they have a better grasp on where the child really should be.
I'm not going to beat this up anymore.
You know,
Just ask
when you're on the other
people.
side, I mean, as I've talked to many parents over the years, there's so many parents that
I'll
think that
close
their
this out.
child is,
That Tom first.
you know, so gifted and so forth, when in fact they may not be. You know what I mean? And wants them to take these classes, it's the parents trying to move on through their classes. You know what I mean? I think that's one of the elements that has to be considered in this. So I think that it's important to set reasonable criteria that make it that the right kids are taking the right classes so that everyone will be better off in the long run.
I'd like to put a personal side on this because I do have the experience of going through this. AP, I took honors United States 1 history in 10th grade. I wanted to take AP the next year. I got I believe a 91-point-something%. I needed a 92 to make it into AP. I made it in. I don't know. I had to write it in. I had to give a sample of one of my essays to Ms. Jones. She said it was good, and she let me into the program. I got a 5 on the AP exam in a pretty difficult class. I know some kids who had high A's and who easily sailed into AP history who did not score 5s, who maybe did not even score 4s. I think it needs to be handled on a case-by-case basis, and I don't think a blanket policy for everyone necessarily is the best option.
Tom?
In 1976, I started teaching.
I was 16, by the way.
And taught that until 2004. So I've come across this. And the principal has nailed it on the head. His comments are exactly right. Mr. Ross took the words right out of my mouth. Because there were parents who insisted, because their prior 3 children were in my honors math, that the 4th one had to be in also, but didn't quite have it. And somehow guidance let them in. They didn't want to be there. They didn't want to be in that class. And as a result, they didn't make it through it. If you're talking about a higher level, whether it's honors or AP, then the standard should be high. So I think they have a pulse on the educational part of it. I just agree with what they said.
I think at the end of the day, what we're striving to do is to have, because this is really conceptually nothing more than a screening process. And I think what we're trying to do is develop a screening process that really does not do a disservice to the student that doesn't belong there, but at the same time doesn't become a sledgehammer for students who do want to have a chance to try to better themselves. So it's a difficult tightrope. I mean, I've been a high school teacher, I've been a high school principal, I've been around this discussion as well, not since 1976, but I started in 1977 as a teacher, so.
Go 17. Do the math.
Anyway, math wasn't my forte, but there is an element of fairness, obviously, that comes into it with a student. I mean, you can take both sides of this, and you certainly don't want to put students into a situation where they turn around and say, why did you let me take this when you knew that I really wasn't going to do that well in it? That's the last thing you want to have happen. At the same time, you don't want to close the door to kids who may show some potential, who might do well if you let them in. So I think there's an element of maybe fine-tuning the whole screening process the best we can. It's never going to be perfect. Obviously, if there's a desire of the committee for us to go back and look at some of this, we can certainly do that. I don't think there's ever going to be a perfect answer to this. We've had this discussion almost every year since I've been here about trying to fine-tune this the best we can. And I appreciate your personal example. For every personal example that is good, we can show you probably one that's bad. So I don't want to get into that kind of thing. But
I would just I guess from my standpoint, I'm not sure if the rest of the committee, obviously it's the first blush at this to begin with. So, I mean, I would recommend that the administration sit back down, look at the waiver process again, and have the academics look at the hurdles, the 95 hurdle, and come back with your recommendations, and then they would bring this document to the full board in December probably.
The other piece I want to just point out is logistically and statistically, what we're finding is that the foresight correlations are not really what they should be in 9th, 10th, and 11th grade. There's some issues with the test that I believe it's more a 3 through 8 design test. So we want to run the first marking period. The bottom line is it's teaching a student how to take a test. It's not truly...
doesn't have good predictive validity.
Right. And it's not really helping us to decide who's the student that needs certain remediation. And so we're...
Is there a different test that we could use?
No, I've been talking to
not one that you would want to rely on.
Okay. We own the test. So the tool for a teacher to be able to mark it and use it themselves, we own the test once you buy the test. The cost of the test, for what we're starting to believe, is the lack of significant value of finding it. There's no questions in 3rd through 8th grade. There's correlations. We use it. Data teams talk about it. Bill and I need to look at the first set of data this year, but I've already said to Dr. Otto, we may come back with a recommendation that there's ways to be able to evaluate a student, and it may not have to have kids taking tests 3 times a year on top of so much else that PDE has imposed, especially on the 11th graders. So that may be eliminated by the time you get this book in December as one of the criteria.
Okay. And again, I'm just what stuck out when I read through this. Mrs. Strand, I believe there was one other part, and I just searched and I didn't see it in here, but there was one other. I'm not sure if you put it in there.
The
early
what
dismissal.
We had talked about last
right.
year.
Yeah.
We haven't, because Bill and I felt that we needed to come back to this committee to see if you were still in favor of us including that next year. Late last year, we had talked about a number of different things that over the coming years you wanted me to revisit. One of them was, I think at least the building administration and myself have come to understand that budgets, being what they are, will probably never bring back the array of electives that were offered to students 3-4 years ago for a number of years to come. And so working in defined parameters and limited seating in the sections that Bill can run with electives, one of the things we talked about was a practice we had back in the early 80s here, where students who were academically sound, they were passing their grades, they didn't have significant discipline issues, and they had their amount of credits were on board for graduation as a junior or senior, were permitted to leave. At that time, we did it after lunch. could use ninth period. One of the things I'm concerned about is a child sits in an elective who really just doesn't want to be in a study hall, 8th and 9th period, doesn't really need to be in the elective or want to be there, and takes a seat from somebody who really truly could use that course. So there would have to be parent waiver, signatures. There'd be some logistics involved in it that we have to revisit the way we used to do it. But if you are interested in us making that offer, it would not reduce staffing in the district, in the high school, but it may offer some seats in some electives.
I'm not sure I would push it down to the junior level, but I'd definitely look at it at the senior level.
And that's fine. I mean,
because at that point there, you either have what you need or you don't. At a junior level,
The problem is the junior, if you fail a class now, you're...
right.
yeah, and you wasted a period that you could have been taking another elective that you needed.
We did junior and senior before. I mean, all we need is we think that should be there because we'll have to do some design of what the program would look like. And it would have to be included in here, so we need to get it in there.
The only way a junior would get out the door with that is if they didn't have the issue.
I wouldn't
recommend it for
Yeah.
juniors.
No, I wouldn't either. Seniors.
The seniors, and most of the college-bound seniors are going to stay in the school all day. I'm kind of envisioning the students that are not VOTEC, they're not college prep. There are some college prep kids that may have a job and they want to earn money for college, and that's more important than maybe taking an elective that really we're forcing them to take. But there are many students that are not really, they're not college bound, and they're not VOTEC, they really don't know what they're going to do. And some of those students, they have enough credits, and they really, and I did a study last year, but on the seniors that only needed 3 credits. Their 4th math, their 4th English, their 4th social studies, and physics. And vast majority of the students in the senior year have everything else they need except those courses I just mentioned. Now, most of the college prep kids and their parents are going to want them to stay in school and take more AP courses in their senior year, honors courses, and college.
But if they could get out 9th period, that still gives them one whatever, and you get it.
It does. I'm just the master scheduler, and I'll just say that really compacts the schedule. It makes it difficult to make it all work because I have to, that last period, let's say 300 seniors, and most of them don't, or let's say 2/3 of them, 200, want to leave at the end of 8th period. Well, I have to schedule, make a master schedule where they get most of what they need in the first 8 periods of the day. Another option can be they come in a period late. Maybe they would enjoy that more, sleeping in.
Well, I know one girl that would.
I would.
I know too.
And again, I mean, people probably would be
Actually,
happier
your
with.
superintendent wouldn't mind that.
But I think what you need to do is there has to be certain criteria, just like any other screening process, where if you need 8 credits, then you're done. But if you're in the 4 or 5 credit period, then maybe you come in a period early, or you can leave a period early, and that would help you out because your prerequisites are only 4 credits or 3 credits or whatever it is, and you don't need.
Right.
So.
If they came at the end of the first period or whatever, how would you do attendance?
We probably, I would just have them sign in at the office, and we would. That's one
Put 'em on the
option.
time
Or
clock.
attendance is taken second period by the
Second
teacher.
period.
I'm in.
I mean, just
And I've worked in a school district where attendance wasn't taken until 3rd period. So students came in and they went right the first period. There wasn't a homeroom. That's back in the early 80s. But attendance wasn't taken until the 3rd period of the day.
So there's a way to get around that.
It gives seniors
Time
an
to do
extra
something like
perk.
this. It's time.
So it's time. So take a look at that. I mean,
And it would also be an ongoing screening where if after first marking period you're failing courses, then
it's no different than the eligibility to play
That's right.
sports.
Right. And there's an option, a student could do an early admit course to RAC or to somewhere later in the day if they were able to get an early release, or be employed somewhere.
To be honest with you, with the heavy involvement of our students in activities and sports and stuff after school, I don't think it's going to be more than a handful of seniors leaving anyway.
I was thinking
That's
the
just
same
my guess.
thing.
The coming to school late may be,
Coming to school late would be
That-
probably very
that's-
attractive to the
yeah.
kids who are involved in a lot of activities.
Absolutely.
Because there's no, the problem is if they would leave and come back, where do they go in the meantime?
Right.
And
I don't think that's it,
things can
but
happen.
just to your point though is.
I like that
if
come in
you're-
late
if-
thing. I think that's
if you're
a
an
good idea.
athlete,
We didn't talk about
By the time
that.
you get home, it's 9:30. You know, you do your homework. I mean, you're getting to bed at 11:30, 12 o'clock, and up at 5:30, 6 o'clock to get here again. You give them that extra half hour, 45 minutes, and you got a less grumpy person on your hands in the morning. So,
The first thing you have on the agenda is the high school course guide. When does the board vote on that?
typically in December.
In December.
That's actually the second thing.
All right, my question is, does the course guide for next year reflect any of like the PSSA test results and what would have to change in the course guide work? Do you understand what I'm saying?
No.
Because of, it doesn't.
No, I don't understand what you.
Because of certain test results that
Right.
the district may get, PSSA or whatever, does that affect what's put in the course guide?
No. The course guide it does not. He's saying if we get a bill, if the high school goes on, we don't make PSSAs.
I mean, if we go in warning or
Yeah.
school
No,
improvement.
I just wonder, you look at test results, I'm assuming that you create the curriculum around your, whatever bill, let's talk about the high school, based on what's in your course guide.
We use the eligible content, we'll be starting to look more at the Common Core standards that are coming out. We use any guide given to us by the Department of Ed as far as almost a state curriculum now, and along with the textbooks and that we have. But if, let's say we had only 50% of the kids scored proficient in the math 11th grade test, we would look deeper into what content area they may have been deficient in, but we wouldn't rewrite a course based on that.
So you wouldn't add or delete a course based on test results necessarily.
No.
Correct.
But you could.
Well, that's why it's part of the course criteria for some courses. They have to score proficient or honors or advanced.
Well, let me. I think if the high school gets a warning on math, she can't change the way she teaches algebra. I mean, you have to have something done by the end of this week, according to state. You have to have something done by the end of next week. So much material covered by the end of next week, according to the state guidelines. So our math department can't change the way they're teaching math. They have to teach Algebra 1, and during the week of December, whatever, they have to teach this block of material. It's not an option anymore.
Well, let me go back. On a very minimal level, let's say, I sent to the math department recently a 2-page document that spoke to common mistakes that students make in answering questions on a PSSA test, where they don't answer it completely, they don't use certain verbiage, they don't prove it a certain way. And so that may be incorporated into a skill they teach the children, but they're not going to take something out and put that in place of it. It's a technique, let's say, that they may include.
It wouldn't result in adding or deleting a course.
We're not going to hang our hat on the PSSA
But
test.
it can change the approach to a course.
Right, the
Within
approach.
the 11th grade Algebra 2 and Applied Algebra 2 courses, there is a month-long PSSA prep unit. And that's made a big difference in the last 2 years, where we were, 2 years ago, 53% of the students were proficient. Last year, 70% of the students were proficient in math. And that is the main reason that unit was developed for that purpose.
And when we look at Common Core for the 2014 PSSA tests, we will be changing some of the content taught in a course if they don't get the Common Core standards higher, because some of it is watered down in math, even in kindergarten. We left ours where they were based on national standards, but when I saw the Common Core, there are some significant changes in the bar where they have things. I would bet we'll probably leave ours higher where it has been reduced, but there are some content changes in grade levels, and we will have to address that for 2014.
Yes. So, okay, just to quickly summarize, we've asked the administration to go back and look at the waiver and the math department at the 95 level. The board, and I assume the board, because I didn't hear any nays, are strongly
Board hasn't
supporting.
seen all this yet.
I'm this committee. Strongly supporting some type of either early dismissal or late coming into school for seniors who are eligible,
We'll call it a time waiver.
or some type of a time waiver. And you'll bring the course selection, your recommended course selection guide back to the board for the prior to or at the committee of the whole in December. Okay, understanding that last year we pushed it out to January because there were some issues. So but I think we corrected those issues. There were some banned things. So if they don't like something, they get pushed back. It will not be reviewed at a curriculum committee in December because there won't be one. Because I'll be the only one here. My fellow board members not running for re-election, so one is right in, I guess. So so there'll be one in January. So it'll go right to the committee of the whole in December, and we'll discuss it at the committee of the whole meeting then. Okay. Next up is the K through 12 professional staffing, aka Anne Marie wants more money.
No, I'm saving you money.
Yeah,
Oh,
what do you see
saving
there?
us money.
Yes,
Yay, we like to hear.
Bill and I will split it.
Okay.
If you look at the K-5 projections, the handicap I have this year is when we went to half day and we lost a significant number of kindergarten students. As I've told you a number of times, in addition to having kindergarten registration next year, I'm going to have to do a first grade. I had a conversation with Monsignor McCann the other day just to get a feel from him on how many of his kindergarten kids he thinks he'll maintain in that second section he opened. And he said he needs to know too, because it's going to be staffing in him. So I think now it's pretty standard understanding in the district. We're half-day kindergarten. And so we should see more solid numbers when we do the kindergarten registration. They are really ballpark right now only because I based them on a formula I use, current plus a couple. What I'm thinking more in terms of is that, like I did last year, this would be a perk. I'll come back to you in April or May and say, hey, I can give you another teacher that I can take off if numbers start to become low. There are some high numbers. It makes me nervous to look at fifth grade almost a year before they'll be in fifth grade and see they're already going to get 25 or 26 in the section. That's high, but it's the end of that bubble. And I'd rather have it high there than in first or second grade. I have to flip in Monocacy in order to, there's a bubble in second grade right now, I'm going to go into third, and I have to put another section in there just because of the size of that. So I update this each month as we see our enrollment, and then I'll do a better projection once we do that first grade and kindergarten registration.
You want to revisit that in the January meeting then?
Yeah, I can do that for you and just show you how close I am. I put the little red arrows where it's just something that I have to look at, or the 24 going into first grade a year out, especially when I don't know how many would come back to Birdsboro Elementary, is a number I'm really going to have to look hard at in the spring. I'll have to just take somebody from another grade level because we don't want to increase staffing. So we'll just keep you updated with that. 6, 7, and 8, I'm going to hold that conversation off a second because it impacts Bill, and Bill can then speak to that. Bill and I have looked at 9 to 12. We're going to be losing a counselor at the elementary level at AIC. You already know that because of the early retirement letter that you received. If you look on my spreadsheet, you can see that we will save, by getting somebody in Master's Step 1 as a replacement for that individual, almost $39,000 from current salary to the replacement. Mrs. Grow is the second person who already gave you her letter. With Bill's struggle with electives, there's no way we could reduce that department by a teacher. And so you can see that that's a significant savings also when you look at bringing in a new person versus Mrs. Gross' salary. Right now, we have Mr. Less full-time as tech ed and a half-time tech ed person who took Mr. Yakel's classes when he retired in August. Bill and I are recommending that we reduce the department from 1.5 down to one person. And we won't need to find an individual to do that. We currently have that half-time person is half math, half tech ed. So to make him full-time will not increase the need for benefits, and that's why you see the minimal amount in order to bring him up full-time. And then you see the savings over Mr. Less's salary. That half of the math that he currently does, we would have to replace. And so we have a half-time math teacher right now that, again, we can bring on full-time. You know, it's without the cost, additional cost of benefits. And so that can also happen for you. The one part that's there that is becoming an issue, and I'll just give you sort of the talking points right now because nothing has been decided. It's been an ongoing fight with BCTC in that our kids take math out there, and over the years as school districts have started to go into warning and school improvement, they've pulled those kids back, taught them math, and send them later. BCTC has math courses. We only require our sophomores and juniors to take math, but BCTC has now put a proposal on the table for the 12-13 school year. They want to eliminate the instruction of math at BCTC and supplement that with social studies. And it isn't that they want to bring staff on board. They believe they want to offer the social studies in online courses that kids could select a course, take it 24/7, and then we would recognize it for graduation. Bill and I believe strongly in the value of our staff. I won't speak for Bill. The courses we have designed for junior and senior year, we believe are courses that will help the kids. Putting a student in front of, an online program for them to do at their leisure, I'll say. For economics or American government, we've put a lot of work into those courses. I think...
if I can interject, this is something that we as a superintendents are going to have to tackle as well to help. I've been around again, having past experience as a principal, not that this is about me, but I think the whole philosophy of the technical center is kind of like a math-based program, and to have a technical center that doesn't integrate math instruction into what they do just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me from a lot of standpoints. And to put a social studies program in a technical school just sounds to me more like scheduling convenience than it does reality. So
scheduling convenience
for them
and head count. So again, I mean, you and I talked about this. We don't have to accept what they want. I mean, if they decide they don't want to do math anymore, if they want to, we don't have to send our students there for social studies.
Right, it would just cost us a half a teacher. Yeah. And I have that listed
I didn't mean to cut to the chase on it, but I mean, I really have a problem that others who can't do try to teach, try to force us into a wall and then make us accept their fixes because they could not bring people up to the level on math. Are trying to make us.
I don't know that you want to go right there. Okay.
They've been trying to do this now for the 7 years I've been on the board, so at different levels.
I don't think they're doing this unilaterally. I mean, my understanding is they have committees that all the superintendents, all the principals, whoever's been involved. I mean, this can be talked about. I think they're talking about options, and in fairness to BCTC, if you look at their IEP numbers of enrollment. I mean,
it's a multi-factor issue.
60% of the kids that go there have IEPs.
But also, what they were doing were the schools were pulling their students out of their math program, and they now have staff that can't support the number of students in. So if you got I'm just going to pull a number. You got 4 math teachers, and you only got enough children to teach for 2 classes. It was one time last year, they were going to try to roll those teachers back into our districts.
Well, that's because that's your arrangement. I mean,
Yeah.
that's not them forcing it on you. That's
No, they were going to try to roll their teachers back into our districts if they couldn't force it.
that's because that's the whole jointure. But but I don't necessarily know that they're trying to force anything. I think they're trying to come up with some, and they do teach. They teach mathematics throughout their programs. Even they teach English throughout their programs. They don't have a specific English class, but they still have the kids writing and using.
That is integrated. That is
skills.
correct.
I mean, they're integrated programs. I think.
I just know that
I think it's being cast a little one-sided as well. That's all I'm saying. I don't think they're
Okay.
necessarily.
I'll give you that. I'll
trying
give
to
you
force
that.
anything.
But at the same
If I
time,
can interject here,
Sure.
because I was part of the committees 10 years ago, and the same recommendation was made at that time, that math be taken back to the homeschools. Went to the joint operating committee and the superintendents. It was knocked down, so math continued to be taught at Vo-Tech. So on an individual basis, school districts started pulling their kids out to teach them math, even if most of their kids were special ed. And they started teaching math at the homeschool. So their arrival time at Vo-Tech, and I'd say over half of the districts that send their kids now teach math at the homeschool. They all are arriving now at BCTC at different times. So BCTC has a major problem because all these other schools pulled their kids out, and now they're arriving at BCTC late. Their solution was ultimately they had a number of options, but the option they selected was we're going to have the kids take social studies at BCTC. That's what they're going to bring to you at the Joint Operating Committee. And we will have a couple teachers there certified, but the kids will work online when they're at BCTC, when they're not in their chosen BCTC major. But they will get to work on it at home 24/7. So now it puts other districts in a position where the bottom line is we're going to get 40 kids in grade 10, give or take a few, 40 kids in grade 11 coming back to our school to take math. We're going to need to increase our math staffing. I would think you're going to start thinking, well, we need to save some money, so we're going to have to cut some social studies teachers because they can take social studies at BCTC, but it's not going to be the same kind of instruction. And why can't we do what those other schools did 10 years ago and hold our social studies kids back here, and they can just arrive late? That's what happened the last time. And you know, really, we shouldn't be, you know, in a position where we're dealing with the effects
this
of what all other
BCTC
school
has been a
districts did.
decades-old problem.
Well, no, and you can. I mean, I'm not saying you should have to give them social studies. I'm just saying their problem is, right, you have
They have their issues too.
You have 5 schools that are sending the kids there for math, and you have 11 that aren't. So it makes sense that you either do math or you don't do math.
Right.
Because it's a scheduling night, just like you have a scheduling nightmare trying to get everybody's classes in and you know, let kids go 9. They have a scheduling nightmare trying to schedule 16 schools, sending kids different times to get their instructional time in that they need for their
but
program.
is it going to change if they do social studies? I mean, we're already looking at a recommendation not to send. So there's going to be at least one that won't be sending their
Well,
students.
right,
there.
and I think that's probably part of the discussion. I mean, if all 6, you know, if the school said, you know, we'll just take all the core subjects, you guys just do your program, then maybe that's the route they go. But, you know, I'll leave it for whatever comes back.
Well, my only reason for bringing up is just to show you that extra half math person that Bill told me he'll need is reflected on this sheet in the very last.
Without any of that happening.
Right. So.
We'll just add an extra 5 or 6 kids to each one of their classes. So
They're pretty full.
Yeah. The other thing I put on the bottom, just where we might go with that 26 in a class for 5th grade is historically, sometimes we've looked at a class size aid that we've put in for a couple of hours in some of the elementary sessions, and so that's just giving you figures of what
that's what's
that
happening.
could look like in a
That's
cost.
the bigger
too.
question.
The one last piece of staffing that you'll need to consider is
That's a
last
shame.
year in, I believe it was at the full board, we had a conversation about reducing foreign language in the middle school. And we pulled out level 1 of the middle school foreign language. And this current year, the only thing being offered in the middle school is exploratory foreign language in 8th grade. This year, it's not an issue, but next year, that decision that was made that's impact this year will force a significant number of increased students needing level 1 at the high school.
Not as significant. Everybody coming out of 8th grade is
Right.
going to need level 1.
About 230.
Yeah, because
probably.
It was a deferment.
yeah, it was the front.
Right. So a decision at the board level has to be either supporting the staff to do that or having Mr. Henkel find an alternative program. I'm not going foreign language. Something that is
Takes up that time.
in lieu of exploratory foreign language, and take those staff members over to Bill's building in order to be able to do that level 1. Yeah.
So it could be a shift of staff.
Right.
Well, did-
So that would eliminate
Sort
the
of
need
talk
for
about that.
additional staff. Otherwise, you're probably looking at least 2 more full staff members.
I think we discussed that. We knew
Whether we
this was
could add
coming.
5 minutes to every class,
Yeah.
or, I mean,
Well,
know
Tom and I have a
there's
couple
ways-
of different creative things we can do, but that was just something that we left.
Yeah, because he had talked about adding
does-
5 minutes to a class and making it only 8 periods a day versus.
Well, we're also taking a look at a language arts block, and that might just take a chunk of the morning before we even start the other 7
Language arts is
periods.
already 2 periods now in the middle school, is it?
Not in all the grades.
Not in all the grades?
No.
Well, make it all the grades.
So anyhow,
Also
there's
for-
some things that we can
PSAT
certainly do with this schedule.
Okay.
But just if
We'll
that
take
has to
math
become
in
a
eighth grade.
conversation, so we get some direction also.
Okay. And again, don't get me wrong, I'm not against the vote. I'm with Dr. Ott. I mean, you get 7 years, and every time you turn around, whenever there's a wrinkle, it's always, as you said, VOTEC is becoming a dumping ground, and there's issues, and then it gets dumped, and then we end up having to increase staff or decrease staff, and it's the tail wagging the dog type of a scenario.
Well,
And we, I agree with you, we
understand that-
should teach the core courses.
Right.
You
I
teach
think
your
we
specialty
should.
stuff.
I mean, I do.
and let it go.
But if 11 schools are teaching the math and
Yeah.
only 5 aren't, it creates a problem.
part of the problem has been one of politics, quite frankly. Some schools have a little more sway, and some things get done. Superintendents change. VOTEC directors change. I mean, the IU directors change, who pretty much oversees that program. So it's going to take some hashing out. There's not going to be an easy answer, because as long as I've been alive, there's been 8 or 16 schools that feed into this VOTEC system. So they've had this scheduling problem for a long, long time.
And you know what?
That's not a new
VOTEC
issue.
Schools, I mean, the county I'm from, the VOTEC schools, you go there all day. They
Exactly.
teach gym,
Yeah.
they teach
Exactly.
classes, they teach everything.
And that's a model that never came to Berks County.
And I get grief because everybody says, well, when I went to school, that's how it was when I went to school. They got on the buses and they went. And they came back and got on the buses and went home.
Right.
And it was the way it went. So it
And
is.
that model is changing. At least in eastern Pennsylvania, all the schools that were full-day VOTECs have gone back to half-day.
Also, though, those VOTEC students, right now, from what I'm seeing, the VOTEC students leave, and they also come back prior to, to get on the bus. So, I mean, you got a timing schedule and everything else, but
Well, the unique problem in Berks County is the travel time.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had kids with this east and west thing, and only 2 schools serving 16 schools, and literally from one end of Berks County to the other could be an hour.
Right.
That's just not conducive to everybody getting there on the same time.
Yeah.
okay. So, bottom line is you're going to save us $131,000?
And maybe more.
Okay.
Unless we have
That'll
to
make Andrew
hire-
happy.
Unless we have to hire a bunch of vets.
Yeah, so. Last thing on our agenda, and I don't expect to get a resolution on this. I wanted to mention it. I don't expect it to bring a lot of of talk yet because I just want it to be investigated, and we'll bring it back in January to look at it a little more. New York Post, the Washington Post, the federal government Department of Education mentioned it, with the strict limits with the No Child Left Behind that are currently in place. The estimate that was on the news this morning is that 75% of the school districts in the United States will not make the No Child Left Behind levels of this upcoming year because of the drastic jump from where they were this year to next year. Instead of going up incrementally, I don't know what it's a huge swing.
12%.
It's a 12% jump year over year. And the Obama administration is, a few things I agree that he's doing, is asking all schools to petition their states for a waiver, and that he will grant, he has made an edict that he will have those granted to opt out of No Child Left Behind with certain restrictions.
Well, my understanding is that deadline was November 3rd, and the Department of Education declined it in Pennsylvania. I heard that.
Our state, okay.
Tamales came out and said point blank, we will not be issuing a waiver in Pennsylvania.
One of the reasons that they declined it, just a simple reason, was in that the projection, or the proposal was you could freeze it where it is right now for this year. There was nothing that then said it would be extended out a year to 2015. And so the question from a number of states was, does that mean it's a 20% jump the following year? And nobody in Washington would answer that question. And so they were afraid it was more of a vote attraction.
The hornet's nest.
Than it was a gift.
Well, unfortunately, I think we need to get back to, and again, I may get throwing things in front of me, we need to get back to educating kids and not trying to strive to get to numbers. And that's all this is. When you're looking at a 12% increase, everybody is striving for that 12% increase over prior. And there's all kinds of penalties for not making it. I mean, there's huge penalties to school districts. And, hopefully, I mean, what they did was a great deal. I believe that when Bush did his No Child Left Behind, it was a great concept. It was just extremely aggressive in getting.
It wasn't just Bush.
Yeah, well, I understand, but it's his administration that put thut these numbers into place.
It was bipartisan. It was bipartisan.
Well, Bush is being blamed for it. If you read the Washington Post article,
that's usually the case. That's usually the case.
Yeah.
Tornado Left Behind is up for reauthorization anyhow.
Right, and Obama is telling, and President Obama is saying he's not going to sign it as it sits currently.
Right. So it could.
It may be a non-issue.
Yeah.
Right.
But we can revisit this back in January and talk
Well, we'll see what they do between now and
But
then.
I was in a webinar on Friday that they said that Pennsylvania declined.
Okay.
Yeah, I had heard that.
Which essentially means that the math really should be a non-issue for BCTC because they're not going to renew it, and the math percentages aren't going to apply anymore. And they should go back to teaching math at BCTC as it pertains to the students' major.
Right.
I think there was a time when they used to do it right. There was a time when they used to do it right.
But I think what happened is once the schools started were responsible for hitting these targets,
Correct.
These benchmarks,
Right.
the school said, well, then
They
we're
pulled
going
back.
to teach it
Yes.
so we can
Because
make sure
those
that the kids
because
hit
those
them.
kids counted against them that took the math at BCT.
Right.
Yeah.
I will say this.
I don't necessarily know that it's their fault. I think it was just
No, I don't think it's a question of pointing
the
fingers.
Educational
No, it's not a push.
False.
I don't think it's an issue of pointing
Who's your
blame.
BCTC rep?
Would you like to be it next year?
No.
What I do think, though, is they're trying to come up with a solution that doesn't really address the problem.
I mean,
And that's
I'm not
I don't
saying I
that
disagree
social
with
studies
that.
thing.
I think that maybe you may be correct.
Yeah, they're not going to get my vote to make that one fly.
There was an area where it was just competencies, and it was all done within the shop.
yeah. Well, a lot of times people
Right,
just
and
make
if
it with
you're
a
going
confidence
to school
level.
for
So.
masonry and you are competent in mathematics that deal with
Right.
building walls or whatever, that should be, you
Yeah.
shouldn't necessarily have to do advanced trigonometry or whatever they
Right.
on these tests. I don't know. But
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Right.
You want any more questions?
Any other questions?
Are we going to do future topics and meeting days?
Well, we have
Next meeting.
The next meeting will be
After the New Year.
first
Thursday in
Thursday
January.
after New Year's.
In January.
In January, and the topic was going to be, we're going to visit the No Child Left Behind again. We were going to look at the assessments, and we were going to look at the K-12 placements again.
And we'll have looked at Foresight by then.
Right, well, that's the assessments. Yeah.
And if there's one thing I could suggest, at some point, I won't be on the committee at that point in time, I think that looking at what the impact of half-day kindergarten has been should be...
That was going to be that was probably going to be a February. We wanted to get two semesters into it.
Yeah, we need
Yeah, I
to see
think
what
we
the
did
impact's
that.
going
You
to be.
and I said that, I think.
Yeah.
We're going to need more time
Right.
in February. I would say by April, I can do the March assessments.
I don't think you were at that meeting, Mr. Russ, but we had discussed, we wanted to get at least two semesters, 2 quarters, 2 marking periods in, so we could see what the impact was and be able to do some comparisons with
because
that.
there's an impact on those kids and what the curriculum is,
Right.
and whether or not the curriculum's been responsive to what they need. The second is how does it impact first grade,
Right.
second grade, and so
Right.
forth and so on. So those things...
I have a committee of kindergarten and first grade teachers who monitor, and so they're going to be meeting in early February to then, our goal is it doesn't have to change first grade, and we're on target as far as where the content needed to be to meet that goal.
Good.
So we'll see. It'll depend on how many late starts and early dismissals we have.
Right, but I think it's important, we should be reviewing that. I mean, just hold your feet to the fire.
Yeah.
You have to make sure it really does happen.
No, again, it's on, and hopefully in January, we're looking to set up future topics for the next 3 meetings. Yeah, so
So be it.
okay.
We're adjourned.